Hello, 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 my people. How are you today? Okay, come on through, come on through, come on through. Yeah, like the little preview. Okay. We'll get right back to that. But come on through, pull up. It's about that time. It's about that time, y'all. Okay. Like, share. Invite your friends, your enemies, your frenemies, all of them. Let them know we are live. We are on today on Beyond Performative Diversity. Okay. Yes. And so again, I mean, we have only an hour, and so we will be out here, okay, doing the dang thing. I have a very special guest coming in today. So, okay, let's get right into it. All right. So first of all, oh yeah, if you haven't realized, this is kind of part of my Buta Stool Saturdays. This is my Buta Stool Saturdays for my Winnie O's Black History Month celebrations. How you doing? Right? And so it's pretty much my month-long extravaganza celebrating Black experiences, Black history, Black present, and Black futures. Right? Yeah. Ask somebody about that. And so for those of you who have been up on the news on the latest happenings, fam, why is it a certain candle retail store and all that jazz, right, really got into the performance of it all, right? Y'all seen those kente cloth candles, right? Fam, it is not giving what it was supposed to give, family. It is not. And to me, like, my thought was like, dang, their vibe checker was out at the office that day when they were doing that marketing plan. They're like, oh my God, you know what would be really cool? Kente cloth and candles. But then again, were they out? Or maybe that is also part of the promotions and branding, right? We've seen this trend, right? This playing on Black emotions, on the capitalizing on Blackness by any means necessary. Strange. Yeah. But anyways, it goes back again to highlight the performative nature of Black History Month and all things Black, Black struggle awareness, really, right? And which reminds me how Black history really is often taught from the state of human trafficking and enslavement, right? And the reality is Black history goes way beyond that, right? Because to really understand Black history, you have to understand African history, and African history absolutely includes Black history. African history includes the experiences of children of the motherland at home and throughout the diaspora, and that is the one thing if anything, I will continue to harp about and understand, and hope people will understand the importance of owning our narratives, owning our truths, owning our experiences, understanding that we cannot change the narrative until we do what? Until we own our narratives. And so, like I said, I have a very special guest. He'll be with us shortly. But before we do all that jazz, again, going back to adding some context for today, right? It is high time that we move beyond performative diversity into real equitable inclusion. And as you know, if you didn't catch my LinkedIn newsletter, go ahead, go check it out. I'll also drop a link in the comment section. I've had one. I've heard it more than once, right? In professional spaces, folks of a certain demographic, actually saying and pushing the use of imprisoned populations for quote unquote free labor. And oftentimes, when you follow up and ask, okay, hold up, well, tell me about this free labor, they're like, well, it's not really free. We have to pay for the, law enforcement to make sure that they don't run away, for their safety, right? That's a whole other conversation that we may or may not have, right? Or it's like, oh, it's skill building, or it's volunteer opportunities. Roadside chain gang, rebranded again. But that again, these, right? I'm giving y'all a couple of excerpts here. If you're not catching on, there will be future moving beyond performative diversity episodes. So please do stay tuned, stay connected, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And really, what this ties into is the industrial practices, professional spaces practices, and their relationship with the penal system, from traffic law enforcement all the way to the judicial system and public politicians who make the policies that are then practically or impractically implemented into society, right? And when we talk about these issues, at the end of the day, I'm saying we need to address them systemically, right? Address the systems and the structures that continue to perpetuate these problematic ideologies and practices, all right? All right. And so in 1866, right, 1 year after the 13th Amendment was ratified, pretty much legally ending slavery, right? Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina all began to lease out convict labor, peonage. And so this made the practice of arresting Black people very lucrative. It became a business, right? And as a result, a new business, because the old business was free. Enslave, right? Human traffic, capture, enslave, get free labor. And so as a result, hundreds of white men were hired as what? Police officers. Okay, to capture these and these freed people, and these police officers, their primary responsibility was to seek out and arrest newly freed descendants of these enslaved Africans who were deemed to be in violation of what? Black codes. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Black codes, these were codes that were first enacted in 1865, a year before, in states such as South Carolina, Mississippi, so on and so forth. And obviously they varied slightly from place to place, but they are generally very similar. And what they did is they prohibited loitering or vagrancy, and stuff like that. And the idea pretty much was that if you had 3 or 4 Black people standing around, literally talking, just simply talking, they were actually considered to be vagrant and could be convicted of a crime and sent to jail for simply talking. 3 or 4, 3 or more. And let's be honest, we still see that sentiment perpetuated even in this day, including in professional spaces. Okay, peep that. And so, in addition to criminalizing just standing around, it was it was this idea that, if they're standing around talking, they must be jobless, right? And so these codes require Black people to sign annual labor contracts that ensure that they will receive the lowest pay possible for their work. And so also those codes included anti-enticement measures to prevent prospective employers from paying Black workers higher wages than their current employers. And therefore, failing to sign a labor contract would also then result in being arrested and sentenced to unpaid labor or a fine that you didn't have money for, which then either way leads you into the same predicament. And so once arrested, and mind you, they were arresting not only men and women, but children as well, right? And once arrested, they'll be leased back into the plantation and so on and so forth. And so typically it was to harvest cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, or, they'll be leased to coal mines or what? Railroad companies. Tying that back to one of the things that I often harp about is what transport industry, historical context of what it means to have restorative justice practices really implemented in this new wave of equitable inclusion and diversity and all that jazz. Right. And so, really tying this all up into how this fits into, peonage and rebranded slavery and the penal system. Typically, wages in the penal system range from 14 cents to at most $2 an hour for prison maintenance labor. And depending on the state, the incarcerated person, the national average hovers around 63 cents per hour. And along those lines, I'll also like to harp on this point. If y'all know me and you hear, one of the things I harp on about time and time again is what? The importance of contextual data. Importance of contextual data that takes into account what? Complex intersectionality. Yes. Dear research family, get hit to it. Please and thank you, right? Because it is very difficult to find real-time statistics for prison wages in each state. Why? Because there is no central place where the data is collected, and each prison system and state legislature determines how prison labor is regulated and paid. And so with that in mind, I will not belabor y'all anymore. I would like to bring on my special guest for today's discussion. Come on through, family. Come on through.
Hey, sis, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you. I'm excited for this discussion because, I feel like every time you and I get into it, we just go, it's like,
it's from 0 to 160 in no time flat. Like, if we could build a car out of these words that we put together, sis, like Tesla wouldn't have nothing on us, for real.
Facts. All facts. But before we go 0 to 100, let's be honest. I would like for you to please introduce yourself to the people, because I feel like they're used to me. They know me. But please take a moment, introduce yourself to the people, and then we'll just get right into it.
Certainly. My name is LaRock Hudson. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Fellow for the City of Lancaster. I am also the Political Action Chair and Civic Engagement Chair for the NAACP Lancaster branch. And I moonlight in the community in a couple other capacities as well. I won't delve into them because it'll probably take up half the show. But I'm here, there, and everywhere. If Spider-Man was a black man, he'd probably be me, because I'm in everybody's neighborhood doing good things, or at least trying to. I'm here to get into it. I love what you're doing here. I love the Heart platform, and just your tenacity and initiative to get these words and this knowledge out to folks. If they don't know, they're gonna know by the end of knowing you that you're the data queen, and you reign supreme. You know what I mean?
Thank you, family. Thank you.
Of course.
Good love. Listen, I'm like multitasking here, but like where do we even start with this? Like, okay, so just,
you were saying so many words, and I was in the green room like, oh my gosh, like, can we start now though? Like,
yeah, right. Because I feel like when we were kind of prepping, we literally almost started going, and I was like, no, stop, pause.
Right.
So we're gonna bring it back all the way back to peonage. Let's go back to that.
Right.
Yeah. When you think of peonage, what do you think? And
I mean, I'm different. Like, I'm not. I try to keep myself on a learning and knowledge focused trajectory. So when I think of peonage, I think of the peasants outside the castle in medieval times. Like, I don't necessarily jump to what's prescribed from Google or what America or the Western world subscribes to when they talk about peonage and wanting to start in the 17th, 18th century. Like, peonage goes back before race was even, a thing.
Absolutely. And if anything, in a way, when we, right, that one of the reasons that I like that phrase, that words matter, language matters, context matters. Even just like the word peonage, to me, like, even when I think about it, almost like it sanitizes the intensity to which these like inhumane practices are being implemented and perpetuated. Right? Especially in 2022, because people assume, oh no, it's 2022, like, slavery was ended, like all these things happened, like this. I was like, why y'all keep harping about something that's like no longer a thing?
But everybody's complaining about the minimum wage.
Still.
And livable wages, right?
Difference.
If your wages ain't livable, guess what you've been subjected to? I'll wait. I got all day. You know what I mean? Like, until folks come to the conclusion that, until we are at a place where everybody is making wages and receiving benefits, because that's the other thing that folks forget about, right? They think about and they talk directly about the money that's going in their pockets, and they forget about the benefits package, right? Any job that you go to should have a benefits package.
Come on, sir.
And I didn't even say career. I said any job that you go to should have a benefits package. And so, like, folks only think about those wages going in their pocket. So if those wages, right, can't sustain your everyday living, then you're being relegated to a state of subjugation and, in fact, being made to be a peon, which we all know what peons are. Peons are peasants. They're servants. They are cogs in the wheel to somebody else's progression.
Yo, listen, yeah, oh, this is life right here. This is. I love to see it. And I love to hear it. So, man, just. When we
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
Right. So when we go back to, when we talk about peons and peonage, right? And folks not being able to connect that with today's practices, right? Folks assuming that, this only happens in this industry, or this only happens in this space, right? Folks oftentimes don't get to connect it to, hold up, whether you are in the medical industry, in academia, in public service, whatever the space may be, like, we always have to be mindful of how these practices show up, because they show up differently. Right. And maybe could you go a little bit more in that?
So, I mean, first things first, right? Anytime we're talking about any types of practices, any type of tradition, we have to remember that we are in a Western country. We are in America, and America was built upon slavery, point blank, period. It was built upon the subjugation of others. That being said, like, because of that fact and the progression of the white supremacist ideology that became prominent and prevalent throughout America and sustains itself today, we have to look at every facet, every field, every market that we create with the skepticism that it has just a little bit of twinge of white supremacy in it. And white supremacy is built to subjugate others.
I mean, clarification, just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
I mean,
even those of us who aren't white.
Oh, yeah. Can we go there? I'm like,
I would definitely go there. That's what we're here for. We are consistently trying to overcome our own conditioning. So to say that, I got a black-owned business, so it ain't no whiteness here, man. No, look. For you to say that, for you to be so arrogant as to say that, tells me that it's probably more than I want to deal with at that particular point in time in my life. And so I'm gonna let you get sorted out, and then I'll holler at you on the back end.
I feel like we all kind of have that sentiment of, like, because for me, I say to myself, like, baby girl, baby boy, that is not my ministry right now, and I'm like, nah, you good.
I don't got time for it.
Like, we don't.
You can't put your energies everywhere.
Absolutely. Right? Like, people, and then, oh man, okay, so we will address first when it be your own people, and then we will also I would like for us to also then go into addressing when it is not your own people.
Yeah.
Right. Realizing that you're right. All of this is rooted in white supremacy, right? And family. We're not saying that you, dear white person today, that, oh, you are the problem. What we're saying is whatever industry you happen to be in that intentionally or unintentionally perpetuates these practices and ideologies is absolutely rooted in a history that, like, literally, I would say it was the one of the it was the most successful pyramid scheme, right? That it was sent across the globe and implemented and executed so efficiently and effectively. That was like, dang, fam. And the fact that it persists, white supremacy persists today, right? And it's not just for the subjugation of black and brown people. It is all of us, and then there are those people who are like, well, that has nothing to do with me. I don't see it. Or the folks who are like, well, I've been able to pull myself up by my bootstraps.
I mean, if look, I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of boot. If you had boots, what kind of boots they was like. I mean, as far as I know, as far as my family's been able to date back their lineage, we were free folk, at least on my father's side. You know what I mean? So I can't say if we had boots or not. You know what I mean? But I'm honest enough to say that though, right? Like, I don't know what kind of shoes they wore. They probably wore some shoes that was free. Like, if I was free, I probably bought some shoes. But first thing first, but everybody, and like it's funny because so many old sayings and mantras that like my parents and grandparents taught me come back later in life, right? And they're like, like I remember, always them talking about walking in somebody else's shoes. Right.
Yes.
Like everybody, that statement and that correlation to other people's lives and experiences tells you that everybody's shoes is different. You know what I mean? So whether I got just some rice paper on the bottom of my feet and I'm calling that shoes, or I got some Air Jordans on and those is my shoes, like figuratively, everybody comes from, a different place. And so I can't say who pulled themselves up from their bootstraps and who didn't. I know that my experience has been rough as a Black male in America. I know that in one way or another, for a majority of my life, the white establishment and people have tried to dominate me, whether that be physically, mentally, or otherwise, financially or otherwise. But I continue to pull myself up. I wouldn't say it was by my bootstraps. I would say it was by the work that I find in myself. And if that's what we're calling bootstraps, then so be it. But I've been through a lot of the different situations that we're talking about today, like working for a menial wage, not being able to take off of work because you can't miss that day's work because you're making a minimal wage, so you need to maximize your output and your hours in that job so that you can just hope to be in minimal debt the next day. I've worked in behind the wall in an incarcerated state. There's been a lot of truths that I've been able to see through just my different experiences and how folks labor, their time and their energy is just sapped out of them, so much so that they can't even take care of themselves.
Yo, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, as folks who have our eyes open to what these different markets and fields do, how do we come together to be able to build coalitions and committees to be able to, you know, challenge that standard?
Absolutely.
Because folks that are in it, they're not going to challenge it.
Ooh, right. This is and that's a good transition to right when it's not your people, because we know how it feels when it's like it be your own people. Fam, like we ain't got a crab in the barrel. This like if we're going to get out, we gotta get out together.
Right.
You know? And so then on the flip side, when it's not your people, right? When it's those folks who don't see themselves as being part of the problem, number one, or they don't even happen to see the problem because it's not part of their contextual understanding of the historical context as to what has led to this present outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, right, we see that oftentimes those folks, they're like, oh, I'm simply doing my job. I'm simply doing my part. But to me, what I hear is you, again, as you said before, you're simply another cog in the machine doing the thing that to sustain the principles upon which this whole flawed up, effed up system is laid upon. Like the foundations of it is in humanity.
So you can have your place, which you're probably undervalued in that place anyway, right?
Period.
You know what I mean? It's like, and so it falls back, it always falls back on three things: conditioning, well-being, and status.
Go deeper on that one, please, and thank you. And
so,
bring it back one more time too, because I'm taking notes.
So status, right? Status is first and foremost. Our society is built off of biases that come from a hierarchical status system, if you will, you know, and that comes from one, our cultural background and what we were involved in and around through, you know, our formative years, but also, you know, our own personal morals and obligations to society. And those status classes may have you can range from different things, whether they be financial or society or you know, eco-social status, or whether that be I joke with my friends a lot in that, you know, every ethnic group has a hierarchy.
Come on now.
And like, so, and it, I would say that I say that a lot of times in context of some old stand-up comedies that I watched of Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy back in the day. And you know, folks say that there's always a tinge of truth in comedy. And you know, like if you listen to comics, 9 times out of 10, they're telling you the truth. Like,
absolutely,
they're preaching the gospel, and folks don't really pay attention. They laugh it off, but they don't really give it the thought that those sentiments deserve.
And that's why they stand the test of time, and we've seen it time and time again. But go ahead.
Right. So, you know, status is first and foremost. Their well-being, that's any number of things, right? Like, first and foremost is their fiscal or financial well-being. They got to make sure that they can put food on the table and pay the bills so they can continue to sustain and survive. But also is, you know, the physical, mental wear and degradation that it takes to fight the system. Because, you know, it's not just you going up against this empty entity, it's you going up against that entity and every person that works within or for it.
Come on now.
Constantly and consistently for the life of the fight.
Yes.
And sometimes, even after, because folks don't just change opinions and change behaviors. They have to learn something new.
I'm so glad you said that because it reminded me of the quote that I posted. Was it yesterday? About change? By Frantz Fanon, where he says, they realize at last that change does not mean reform, that change does not mean improvement. At least we hope they do realize that. But go ahead.
Right. And even though, I brought up the financial and well-being, that was more from a survival aspect, but that third tenement would be financial. Nobody wants to drop down that financial scale of success. Nobody wants to fall down that ladder, because it's hard to get back up. It's twice as hard to get back up, 3 times. And so those 3 things are usually the root at folks staying in awkward positions, staying in that job that they hate for 25 years, staying, in a state of servitude, to another individual, whether they know it or not. And, that's kind of where modern day peonage comes into play.
Absolutely.
Or modern day slavery comes into play is, folks who are on the verge of survival and just scraping through. They're not really looking around the corner for that clever person with money. You know what I mean? That can pull the okie doke on them and pull the wool over their eyes. You know what I mean? Like, and so when folks con them and build their confidence up for the wrong intentions, and get them into a situation that is either slavery or very close, it's hard for them to get out. And those 3 things, like I said, financial, their well-being, and status is usually the root of those things.
And if anything, for me, see, this is why I love our conversations, right? You really touch upon this really important thing where there's a difference between being of service and being in servitude. And people oftentimes confuse those things together, right? Service does not equate servitude, and servitude does not necessarily mean that you are being of service, of true, well-intended service, right? And so,
Well, and that's funny that you say that, right? Because everybody that has a job, like, we all have this clause in our primary responsibilities that says other duties as assigned.
Oh, come on now. Oh, yes.
With that in mind, you have to know the worth of the labor that you're putting forth. Because if you don't, that's a clear way for them to semi-legally. If you don't know the worth of your labor, then it is all legally to extract labor and energy out of you without it being with you being none the wiser, and that pushing the limits of being in service to being in servitude.
Come on now. Again,
I don't care what any thesaurus or dictionary or anything that says. If you can't get by in the job or the employment that you're in, regardless of what that employment is, if you can't get by in the general status of, your general familiar status, right? Like if you're a single person and you can't get by, working your full-time job, you can't pay a rent, you can't eat and pay a rent,
right?
You know what I mean? Plus everything to sustain that rent, that domicile.
Yeah.
To me, you in a state of servitude.
Absolutely. Or even consider, or even be mindful and be able to prioritize your health, right? So like tagging that here to this idea to access to, universal health, we really is national health, right? Where let's look at in America, in America versus other places in the West, right? Where literally folks are like, this doesn't make sense. If you talk to people outside of America, they're like, hold up, what? Like if I'm sick or if I'm unwell, I literally just go to the hospital or the emergency, vehicle will come and get me. And they find it odd how Americans respond when they find themselves sick in those places. Like, no, don't call 911. Like, I don't want them to charge me. But like, dude, it's like $5, $10, $15, whatever.
Right. Yeah. And I think, let me not get lying. I don't remember for sure, but I think that a lot of those places, even for major surgeries and things of that nature, there's like a minimum threshold, right? Like that the state will pay.
Absolutely.
Like for just off the top, let's just use 2,500 or 250,000, for example. You know what I mean? Like that's a pretty relatively large number in the terms of when we think of it in money. But when the surgeons and the anesthetician and all that other stuff starts taking place, that gets cut down real quick.
Absolutely.
And so like to have even that minimum threshold for major surgeries, that's life changing. That's life changing. That's the difference between life and death for how many people on the regular. Not even that, like 15,000. Is the difference between life and death for how many thousands of people on a daily basis.
I mean, yes. I mean, even for me, as a woman of birthing age, I was having this conversation with my cousin once, and just literally the cost of giving birth in America versus anywhere else, fam. Like, I'm like, dear politicians who are always all up in your uteruses, like, please come and learn something. Like,
it's probably close to $250,000 depending on what state you're in.
It was, and again, it goes back to varying how, depending on how good of a job you have, that means depending on how good of an insurance you have, right? Whereas literally you go across the pond anywhere else, it's like, oh, it could be less than $100 to really get all your stuff covered and have a safe and professional delivery. Like it's insane.
That speaks to how backwards the structures of power are. Right? Like I would think that the folks that are doing the most work for me, I want them to have the best health care. Right. If you just wasting away in the office, plugging on the keyboard, look, you get minimal. You get minimal because you ain't doing nothing. You're not. What do you want to do? Get a paper cut and dot it and like no.
And for me, also throw in their educators, because the work that our educators do to create like these brilliant minds, at least we hope, the brilliance that is our future generations, like it is so undervalued in context, especially in this space. Like, Jesus, like it's just, to me, like, it's ridiculous.
So it's not necessarily, it's the freedom of creativity of educators. Like if they all just followed the standardized way that they want us to be taught, they wouldn't have no issues. But most educators know that they are supposed to be stimulating these young folks' minds, not just drilling them with arbitrary facts that they're not ever going to use in life.
Yes.
And so that's where the contention comes into play. Like we've taught them and we've taught them, to take pride in that work, in the fact that they're breeding this new generation of thinkers.
Yes.
And so, like, why that just speaks to, the level of how the conditioning happens and where it happens, right? Because if kids were in school 8 hours a day, 180 days out the year, learning how to think freely, what kind of world would we have?
That part, having the real option to think freely.
Right. And so that's why they got to take all that away. They got to take away the arts. They have to take away, all of that creativity. They have to take it out and replace it with, what they want us to be complicit with.
Okay, you're right. It is a programming of sorts. It is.
That's exactly what it is.
It's right. And for me, for folks, y'all know how I be. And folks will sit up like, oh no, that is such a stretch of the imagination to try and connect this thing to this thing. But I'm like, even when you look back at the enslavement post the human trafficking from the motherland, what was one of the first things they take? They take away your language. They take away your ability to congregate. They took away the ability to dance, right? And have the celebration, like your artistic expression, right? Yep. And then we see it trickle down. I'm like, in this day and age, and folks oftentimes, like, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I see big picture, and I'm like, how all these like things seem to connect for me, and I'm like, damn, am I the only one? Like, what's really good? Like, what?
I mean, so that kind of takes me back to your kente cloth reference at the beginning, right? Yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, if somebody wanted to impress me, like, show up with a 80s Adidas tracksuit with the Kango cap. You know what I mean? Like, pop up with some high top shell toes. Not the low ones that they keep rotating everywhere, in multiple colors. The high top jump. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you know it was real. Like, pop up with some British Walkers. Like, show me something from our culture. Don't show me something that you think I want to see. I don't call myself African American. So why do I want to see a kente cloth? And if we're calling it Black History Month, then you know what? That Asiatic black man living on the edge of China. You know what I'm saying? Like, what relevance does that kente cloth got for him? You know what I'm saying?
Like, but also half of them are made in China, anyways. We're not gonna go there, but.
I just want to slide off the screen because I died. I'm dead.
It's made in China and the places where it's often sold in bulk.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Like, tis what it is.
Okay. Bought 25 of them on Amazon 2 days ago. Don't try to skip me.
Oh dear, Jeff Bezos is Amazon. Like, yo.
Come on, Jeffrey.
Like, I feel like, honestly, obviously I'm not being paid by Amazon Prime here, obviously, because it is what it is. But I would say Amazon Prime is, and the people that I know who literally live and die by Amazon Prime, like daily deliveries, are the reason why his ex-wife made out with all that money. And I am here for it. As you redistribute your wealth, I am absolutely here for it.
Need some
things, sis. Yes. Okay. Please. Thank you. Absolutely. Right. Oh my word. Yo, this hour has rocked by super fast. Yeah. Oh, funny though. All right, I want to make sure we catch everything. Oh, this is awesome. Yo, that kente cloth got me. I was like, because you know how they'd be like, yo, Jamal, whoever, the designated Black representative in these white spaces, right? They're like, so what do you think? Is this good? I'm like, yo, was he out of the office that day? And like, y'all was just like,
so that's something that I can't do. That's something that I can't, like, you're not gonna send me nowhere and being no type of token. I'm not a coin to be flipped. You want something done, go do it yourself.
Hello.
Like,
and learn something. For me, like, it's this whole idea of, like, again, going back to bringing it full circle, the performativeness of DEI and diversity training. I'm like, you have no problem touting your tokenized folks, but you don't give them the true power and leeway to do the thing that you're saying they're there to do. And that's what this whole conversation and this series of conversations all about. It's when you bring us into these traditionally underrepresenting, misrepresenting, spaces. I was like, don't just bring me in just to feel good, right? Because what was it? Sister Anna White was posted yesterday about these feel good DEI trainings. It ain't about that. It's about
telling folks what they want to hear,
right?
I ain't got time for that.
Thank you. And when you and then so when you stop being that tokenized magical person, right? Then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, what? We had no idea. I had no idea, that's how you felt. I had no idea you were. I was like, fam, I've been telling y'all. I've been calling it out, but you haven't been listening. And so it then ties in back to the whole, oh my God, why Black people angry or like, like this demonizing of the displeasure, very valid displeasure of the tokenization of Black and brown bodies and Black and brown lived experiences. It's like, oh, tell me your experience, teach me, let me learn, but not like that. Not that way. I was like, I want to feel good when all this is said and done. I'm your ally. And we're going to have a whole separate session on allyship because that requires its own discussion, right? And I will preface it with this. Look up the real definition of allyship. Because when I think of allyship, it's always about convenient alliances. It's an alliance of convenience of power relational dynamics.
Oh yeah.
And I'm possible. So
and very, very, very rarely, like if you somebody's ally, you know that you're their ally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's no collective allyship.
Thank you.
It don't exist.
It doesn't.
Like, because somebody's Winnie's ally don't make her automatically Rock's ally.
Facts.
Because they Rock's ally don't mean they automatically Winnie's ally. Like, that's something that has to be accepted. You know what I mean? And all too often, like, it's like, I feel like these folks who claim that they're allies or they on a journey of allyship, they're like your dad's second cousin that you only seen twice ever in your life, and she pop up when you 32. You ain't seen her since you were 6. Right.
I carried you when you were 2 months old.
And she's like, hey, I know you. I'm your auntie. And you like,
right? I'm like, you don't remember me? Like, I was the one who changed your diaper 6 weeks in. You don't remember this? You don't? Oh my God. Yeah. No. Right? Yeah. You're gonna have to come back for allyship. You're gonna have to come back.
Don't tell me what you are to me. I make the decision what you are in my life.
Come on. Oh, and while we're here, one final comment on this particular topic. Remember that just because they're your ally does not mean that they are your friend. Stop confusing allyship with friendship.
That part.
Do not confuse allyship with friendship. And I'm gonna have to pause on this one because, fam, I don't want to give them all the information. Y'all gotta come back. Because you know what? Rock with us, like LaRock. Yes. And so, fam, we gotta wind down.
This is fun. Yeah.
So, this is so good.
Winnie, I want to thank you though. Thank you for having me on this afternoon. Thank you. I'm glad that you're having this Black History Month series, but more importantly, I'm glad that I got to be a part of it.
Thank you. And thank you you are my first guest because obviously Black History, right? For Black History, 2 people. It is you and another very special guest. Y'all just gotta stay tuned. Watch out for the event. We'll be dropping right after this, right? And that's thing for me. Please, if you notice, I want to call out our struggle just as much as I want to celebrate our joys.
Mm.
Because it is equally important to celebrate our joys through the struggle. And we got to recognize that. We cannot just simply be like, oh, I'm all about my Black joy. But for us to get to Black joy, there is a reason why we celebrate and highlight our Black joy and Black excellence. Because the reality is Black excellence and white mediocrity are rooted in the same thing, which is this idea that these things are the exceptions to the rule, when in reality, they are the norm. And therefore, it's like we're constantly having to fight to show like, hey, this is our reality. This is real, right? And it's like, for me, I realize like I really have come to value my joy and my smile and my passion for life because in spite through having to literally have to fight the contrast opposite of it, right? It really means so much more to me. Like my Black joy like means everything to me, in this season and out of this season. Point blank period.
I mean, it has to though. Nobody else is gonna celebrate you like you.
Woo! And we gotta celebrate ourselves. We gotta celebrate our people. We have to give folks their flowers in season. In season, not after everybody else is celebrating. Give your folks their flowers in season.
Not just in season, just because.
Come on, family. Yes. Yes.
You know when you ain't seen your folks in a minute.
Come on, sir.
You know when you see somebody repeated in your feed over and over and over again. Look, you ain't got to be friends to drop no line. You don't have to. None of that. You don't got to be best friends. You ain't got to be friends. You don't have to be associates, acquaintances to say, hey, I see you.
LaRock, that said, people don't get it. Like, I don't know. For me, that means a lot. That means like just that simple line, fam.
Yo, the crazy thing is, if they showed up to a free concert, even though they didn't like the music, at the end they would applaud.
Oh, come on, say it.
But that sounds like something for the allyship conversation.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Facts. Oh, thank you so much. Now, fam, like, we're gonna do the wrap up here and do a couple of plugs, fam. Reminder: next Saturday at noon on the HARP channel. That's the Harassment and Assault Reporting Platform. That's Facebook at harpnow.org, HARPNOWORG. We have the Let's Harp About It live stream, and the topic there, leading nicely from here. It'll be a discussion on rethinking crime punishment, cash bail, and probation. And that will be the one and only Alex Dominguez. Yes. And so again, if you're vibing with us here today, then pull up next week, okay? At harpnow.org, right? Go check it out. And obviously another reminder, Sunday, February 20th, it will be our next Beyond Performative Diversity live stream. And like I promised, there'll be a special guest on that one as well. So stay connected across the Winnie O medias. That's at Miss Winnie O across Facebook, IG, YouTube, all that good stuff. And fam, when all is said and done, let's just all remember that we are Black history. LaRock, you touched on this on your post that I was like, I was like, yes, clickety clack typing. All right. We are Black history. We are Black present. We are Black futures. And at the end of the day, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and our descendants will absolutely speak our names in confidence and pride. And that's all we want, And me, I gotta drop my African proverbs out here. I always gotta drop them. At the end of the day, one of my favorite African proverbs is, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, and therefore we should act accordingly, family. That's all I'm asking, And as always, in all you do, fam, be bold, be encouraged, be love to one another, and more importantly, yourself. All right, LaRock, we out, right? Thank y'all, family. Ciao, nana. Ciao. Get the merch. Hey, come on. That's what we do. Ciao, y'all.